Welcome to another session of the Classroom Learning Series with Green and Healthy Schools, Wisconsin. As always, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for this series, Skyward.
Since our humble beginnings as a small family business, Skyward has evolved into a global technology leader serving more than 2,000 school districts. At Skyward, we are proud to support the initiatives of the Green and Healthy Schools Classroom Learning Series.
Presenting today, we have Heather Allen from Renew, Wisconsin, and she'll be talking with us about the future of transportation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jane McCurry, and I work for Renew, Wisconsin, and I'm here today to talk about transportation and how we can make better transportation choices and power our vehicles with really clean energy. I'm really excited about the future of transportation, and I hope that this little presentation helps get you excited about it too. Renew Wisconsin is a nonprofit organization that promotes all kinds of renewable energy and electric vehicles all across the state of Wisconsin. So if you're ever interested to learn more about electric vehicles or transportation or how you can use clean energy, look us up and you can find a ton of information on our website. So today we are going to talk about how we currently use transportation and energy, what our transportation system could look like in the future, what solutions are available to make our transportation system better, and what role individual decisions can make in helping get us to that transportation future. So how do we currently use transportation and energy? Well, first, I think we should define transportation. I think a lot of people use the word transportation in their everyday life, but maybe don't understand totally what that word means. So the definition is that transportation is the movement of goods and persons from place to place and the various means by which such movement is accomplished. So if we boil that down, it really means how we're getting ourselves and the things that we need to the places that they need to be. And there are tons of ways that we're using transportation. And hopefully this presentation helps you think about all the different ways that transportation is really integrated into your life. So try to think about what kinds of transportation you use. I think typically people think of a car, maybe your parent drops you off at school or you drive your own car to school, but there are also children taking the school bus. Transportation is also used to get you your Amazon deliveries and other groceries. Maybe you're having groceries delivered right now. All of those kind of vehicles that get you where you need to be or the things that you need to you are all kinds of transportation that you're using probably every day. And transportation needs a lot of energy to operate. In Wisconsin, over a quarter of the energy we use as a state goes toward powering our transportation. So it's tons and tons of energy that's being used just to get us where we need or where we want to be, which is really kind of incredible. Not only is it a lot of energy, but it's really expensive. As a state, we spend $8.4 billion, that's billion with a B, on fossil fuels for our transportation every single year. So it's a lot of money that we're spending to get to places, on fossil fuels that are bad for our environment and are really polluting, which is really kind of crazy. And there is a better way to do it. So maybe take a minute to think about what do you think could help make this transportation system better? And better can mean a lot of things. It can mean better for the environment. It can mean better for you as a user of the transportation system. It could also mean better as in less expensive. How do we keep more of those dollars in our local communities instead of spending them out of the state to buy fossil fuels? So there are a few transportation problems that we can help solve. Sometimes people have a hard time getting where they need to be. If you live in a big city and you can't afford a car, maybe you rely on the bus. Maybe you are handicapped and you can't drive your own vehicle. And so you really do rely on shared transportation like the bus or services to get you where you need to be. Transportation is really pretty polluting. And then we're breathing in those toxins and it's affecting our public health. Transportation uses a lot of energy. It causes traffic and it costs a lot of money. So what are solutions that we can help use to solve some of those problems? A few solutions include shared transportation, like the bus. We talked about school buses, but there are also public transportation buses that you can use to get to work or, maybe even go to a friend's house if you live somewhere that has a really great bus system. You can walk and bike on short trips during the summer. You can also drive a super efficient vehicle that doesn't use very much energy, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. And we can also fuel our vehicles with renewable energy, which is made right here in Wisconsin and doesn't pollute. So all of these options are little pieces of the puzzle to help get us to that future of transportation. So a little bit more on the last one there. How can we fuel our vehicles with renewable energy? Renewable energy is almost always in the form of electricity. So it's energy that we're harnessing from wind or from the sun, and we can turn that into electricity to power our appliances. We can also use that renewable electricity to power our vehicles. There are electric cars that you can plug into a solar system and literally take the sun's energy and put it right into your vehicle and use that to get around. Sounds a lot better than putting gasoline in the car, right? So what is an electric vehicle? It's just a vehicle that's powered by electricity. It seems pretty simple. You can plug it right into your wall and then use the electricity from the outlets that you use every day to power your vehicle. Some of those vehicles are called plug-in hybrids, and those use gasoline and electricity. And then there's just full battery electric vehicles, which only use electricity, no gasoline. And people in Wisconsin are driving electric vehicles today. There's thousands of electric vehicles driving on roads in Wisconsin every single day. And people are choosing electric vehicles because they're fun and they're fast. They're really quiet. They're high tech. You never have to get an oil change, which means you don't have to spend time, sitting at the car shop and paying someone to change your oil. They're low cost and low emissions, and you can use them for a ton of different reasons, from commuting to work or to school, to driving for maybe Uber or Lyft, or as a family vehicle. Maybe you have younger siblings that need a car seat. Car seats can fit in electric cars too. So people in Wisconsin are driving these cars for all sorts of reasons. I always get asked, so how do you charge them? You never have to go to the gas station in an electric vehicle. And so you put energy into your car pretty differently. I like to say that you charge your car like you charge your phone. You plug it in when you go to sleep and you wake up to a full battery. It's really pretty easy. And there's 3 different kinds of charging. The first is called level 1, and that's your normal wall outlet, like you plug your computer or your phone into. You can plug your car into that too. Level 2 is faster, and it uses about as much electricity as your clothes washer. So it's kind of a special outlet that has a little bit more electricity, higher voltage, and you can plug your car into that and it charges it a little bit quicker. And then there's level 3 charging, which is super fast. It's lots and lots of power really, really quickly into your vehicle. And those are only used when you're on a road trip or driving really far. That's not typically how you're going to use, or not typically how you're going to charge your vehicle. But you can find those. If you're on a road trip, you just download an app on your phone and you can find those charging stations really easily. Electric cars are super, super efficient. So one of those things we talked about as a solution is making cars more efficient. Electric cars are 3 times more efficient than your typical gasoline car. Gas cars, you put a ton of fuel in them. Only 20% of the energy in that fuel can be converted into actual miles traveled moving down the road, which is pretty crazy. So in an electric car, you're using up to 60% of the energy, sometimes even more, that you're putting into the vehicle into miles traveled. So not only can electric cars be powered by renewable energy, but they just need less energy in general to operate. And that means that they're a lot better for the environment. On average, EVs produce emissions equivalent to about an 80 mile per gallon car. The average car on the road today is about 24 miles per gallon. So it's so much better for the environment. And it's only going to keep getting better as we have more of that renewable energy on our grid and cars are charged with more and more renewable energy. So just as an overview, electric cars are really quiet. You don't have engine noise. They're really, really fun to drive. I drive one and I really love it. They're safe, they're high-tech vehicles, and there are people in Wisconsin that are already driving them today. So how can we make a difference? We talked about the problems and some of the solutions, but how do individuals make an impact? This is such a big system that we're talking about. And I think it's important to break it down and talk about how we as individuals can make choices that help to get us to a transportation future where everyone has access to it. It's less polluting, it's more cost effective, and just is better for everyone in society. So how can we make a difference? Number one, walk and bike for short trips. I know in Wisconsin it gets super cold. I'm not going to ride my bike in the winter. Maybe you will, but walk and bike when you can. And then you are really using your own human energy. You don't have to use any extra energy to power your transportation. Number two, take the bus to school and around town if that's available to you. It's a really great way to share a vehicle, reduce traffic, reduce the amount of energy it takes to get you where you need to be. And those buses can be powered by electricity too, and powered by renewable energy. Remember that driving electric is an option. There are tons of electric vehicles on the market right now. If you're about to get your driver's license, maybe think about how you can make some of your miles electric vehicle miles. And then talk to the adults in your life about why transportation and energy is important to you. Maybe you don't have a ton of decision-making power in your school or in your community, but the adults that love you and care about you, they might. And so talk to the people around you about why transportation and energy use is important and what we can be doing to use more of those transportation solutions. That is all that I have for you today. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Again, my name is Jane McCurry. My colleague is Heather Allen. You can email her at heather@renewwisconsin.org or look us up on our website, renewwisconsin.org. We'd love to continue having these conversations with you all and talking about renewable energy and electric transportation. Thank you.
We pulled a little switcheroo on you there on who was presenting, but thank you, Jane, for giving us a nice overview of some transportation issues in Wisconsin. And hopefully we're all thinking a little bit more about how we can be a little more efficient in our energy use in regards to how we get from here to there. And I hope you got some good ideas to use at home or in your classroom in your discussions about electric vehicles and the future of transportation. Thanks for watching this video, and we hope that you watch the other videos in this series, the Classroom Learning Series from Green and Healthy Schools, Wisconsin. Have a great day.